Welcome back to Henry Harrison's Entrepreneurs Business and Finance podcast featuring CyberHoot founder Craig Taylor. Don't forget to like, sub, and hit that notification bell so you can stay connected for more great and important episodes like this one. Enjoy the show.
Well, welcome to the Henry Harrison podcast, Entrepreneurs, Business, and Finance. Today, I'm very pleased to have on the show Craig Taylor, founder, and you'll have to tell me if you're the sole owner, but of CyberHoot. And I love the name because we're going to be talking about cybersecurity. That's Craig's expertise, among other things. And after that, he says, laugh, learn, and hoot it up. And that is something that caught my attention. That's not something that I normally hear when someone talks about cybersecurity. Hello, Craig.
Hey, Henry. Good to be here. Yeah, I hit the nail on the head. You don't often hear laughter and cyber in the same sentence, but it is sorely needed. People have stopped paying attention, listening. There's apathy out the wazoo because people have just been shamed and punished for far too long. They fail a phishing test, one of those gotcha emails that go to your inbox, and you have to go watch a 30-minute video. Studies show that people spend 10 seconds on those videos. They're not learning, they're not changing their behaviors, and the outcomes, the results are in the news every day, breach after breach. So something has to change. And if you look at it from a multidisciplinary approach, which my background 30 years ago is a psychology degree, you have to embed positive reinforcement, gamification to get engagement, to get people to change behaviors and to internalize things. So that's in essence what we set out to accomplish 10, 12 years ago at CyberHoot, my company, and you can see it in our logo.
So what does your company do? How do you accomplish that or strive to accomplish that? Specifically, what's a client?
Sure.
And what are they paying you for and what are you providing to them?
A client is anyone that needs cyber literacy skills, which I think boils down to every last man, woman, and child on the planet. We all use computers personally and professionally every day in almost every position, every job. And what we do at CyberHoot is we make it fun, engaging, and educational. We follow a very short time frame for assignments in our assignments to individuals. We know attention spans are short, but we try to make it fun, educational, and engaging, really, where we don't punish people for failing things. We reward them for the good behaviors that they need to use in their daily lives. If you go back in time, science and psychology, 75 years ago, the father of operant conditioning, B.F. Skinner, said, rewarded behaviors are repeated. What the cybersecurity industry has been focused on unnecessarily, inaccurately, or incorrectly for the last 25 years is punished behaviors are extinguished. That was never said. That's never been proven true. And the results are what we see in the news media. Any business out there can sign up directly with CyberHoot to send 5-minute assignments to their employees once a month, twice a month. And it builds this muscle memory to identify and avoid phishing attacks, to understand the importance of password hygiene, and a dozen other topics, one per year, one per month throughout the year in a short 2 to 3 minute video. And then what we have a patent pending on is our Hootfish exercise. That is the full 180-degree turn away from these fake emails to the inbox and rather a positive, highly realistic exercise or simulation in the browser that a user goes through with an open book. Here's what you need to know about the sender and the subject and the greeting, the language quality, the urgency, emotionality, the links and the attachments. And we build a rubric in our end users that becomes almost automatic. So when you see an email and you go, something's not right, they go, oh, phishing, delete. Or I really can't tell, so I'm going to call the person before I action this urgent financial transaction. I promise you we've saved millions of dollars of companies that have had this training, and the finance person calls the CEO and says, did you send me a wire transfer request? Because something's not right. Oh, I didn't do that. What are you talking about? Full stop, no wire, money still in the account. And then I've done forensics on many other accounts, companies that have done the wire transfer, and they go, how did this happen? Because no one teaches these cyber literacy skills in ways that people pay attention and learn. So that's CyberHoot in a nutshell, Henry.
So it is hard to be positive on some of these stories, but I talked to the manager at the bank that I go to and use, and I said, "What do you spend most of your time doing?" Because she helps me with a lot of stuff. And she said, honestly, bank fraud. It's the
Yep.
majority of our day is dealing with bank fraud, which what triggered that memory is you're saying, yeah, someone sent out a wire they shouldn't have sent. And most of that is not, pretty sure, is not coming from individuals meeting with individuals. It's coming from something online where someone's sending something the wrong way because they've been tricked or been hacked or whatever. So yeah, real money goes out the door. I mentioned
Exactly.
systems crashing, and my sister and brother-in-law had a plastic surgery practice, and they got ransomed.
Oh
They
boy.
had they had everything backed up, so it didn't
Yeah.
hurt them. But wow, that's
How
just
long? I would bet that was probably 5 or more years
it
ago.
was, yeah.
Yeah. Reason I say that is that hackers are much more sophisticated today than they were 5 to 10 years ago. They don't just encrypt your files now, they exfiltrate the data. And if you don't pay because you have good backups, as your brother and sister-in-law had, because you can get your data back and you can bring up operations, then they say, you know what, we're just going to release all the different procedures that every one of your patients had done to them with the photos to the internet. Now will you pay? And if you still say no, then they're going to call up the Department of Health and Human Services and say, we have 500 or more health records for this company and they're not reporting it. So you got to go look at them and find them. And then finally, if they still don't pay, they're going to start calling the employees of your firm to say, your company's not paying the ransom and we know where you live. You better have them pay up or harm will come to you or your family. It's horrible. It's an absolute travesty of justice and what is good and just about humankind. And so hackers are getting much more devious in what they do. So your brother and sister-in-law got off lucky in that they were an early victim of ransomware. The firms that I'm getting a ransomware call on today are having very little choice but to pay the ransom and hope for the best.
Wow, yeah. So I guess when you're getting these, sending these emails with videos to people within companies, you're spinning it a little more cheery than that. That's the objective.
Yeah. That's the dark, cold reality of the world we live in today. But how you change behaviors in your employees is not through the
It's got to be,
necessarily
it's
that
got to
doom
be
and gloom.
interesting and positive reinforcement and somewhat
Exactly.
fun. Fun,
Exactly.
yeah.
The best analogy that I've found, and this isn't to say employees are like dogs, but imagine you had to train a dog, you had two choices. One is a shock collar, the other is a treat, like little handheld treats. And you said, okay, Sparky, let's go to the dog park. And the dog had the choice shock collar when I make a mistake, zapped, or a food treat to keep me motivated to do these things. You know what's better, right? For you, the owner of the dog and the dog, they're all going to pick treats every time. Why then are we treating our employees like shock collars? And the bigger the risk, the bigger the shock they get. Up to like, I've heard many firms that fire people after 3 failed phishing tests, which is measuring what they know, not teaching them how to fish, right? And fish is PHISH. These are these emails that come into our inboxes that trick us into thinking we need to respond to this now. We have no time to think about this. We have to click link, provide credentials, get the report, whatever it is imploring us to do. And that's the very worst thing we could do. We have to follow PAR, pause, assess, report, and if necessary, call the person. That would be a fourth step to verify what they want. So that is really the reality of changing behaviors, is focusing on the good behaviors and publicly recognizing employees that do good things, building assignments and educational integrations that breed engagement, internalization of the knowledge, behavior change over time. If you look at psychology and education, they understand all of this. Cybersecurity is over here on its own island saying punish with bigger and badder sticks employees who make mistakes. And that just doesn't work.
It reminds me of, I, of course, have never had a speeding ticket. No, I have had a speeding ticket. And they
You
have
and
an
me
option
both,
in,
right?
yeah, in Texas where you can go to defensive driving. And the best thing that ever happened was, maybe not, because then it didn't, I haven't gotten many tickets lately, thank goodness. I haven't gotten a ticket in a long, long time. But defensive driving at a comedy club. And it was just really something, because I'd been to the other ones where everybody's falling asleep as they're going through these arduous, long explanations about boring things. And the cyber club was all positive reinforcement.
Bingo. It works. Heck, you can think about parenting children. You don't punish them for failure. You reward the good behaviors, and hopefully those overwhelm the bad behaviors over time because the child internalizes, hey, if I have a temper tantrum and I just take a deep breath, I don't have to get that upset. And then you get rewarded for that and recognized. And so it repeats itself. But if you take the belt out in the old days, you whack the kid over the backside, it doesn't really work. We've come to that conclusion over the course of many years.
I'm looking at your detailed biography, and you have relationships that maybe this isn't current or updated, but 350 MSP providers you're serving, 100 direct customers, 100,000 end users,
Yeah.
50 companies worldwide. And so it looks to me, because we talked about your actual employees, and while it's significant, it's not over 10. Looks to me like you're drinking your own
Kool-Aid.
juice, your own Kool-Aid, yeah. Because you must be using a lot of leveraging cybersecurity to provide all these benefits to your clients.
I think you mean AI. We're leveraging
Yeah, is what I meant, yes.
for everything. Yeah, we have AI helping us with sales. We have AI as a support agent inside our platform. There's a little chat bot where you can ask it questions, and we've diligently fed it our knowledge base articles and said, you can answer on these things, nothing else but these things. And if you don't have the answer, send a ticket to us and we'll take care of it with humans. We use AI to produce our training videos, which initially was really not a good idea. We paid $5,000 per video for our foundational videos about a decade ago. And we produce 12 new videos a year, one a month, on current topics that people need to learn about to stay current on the types of attacks that are going on in the world. And that was unsustainable in the long run because we have thousands of videos in our platform today. But AI has opened the doors. We can do it for pennies on the dollar for what we used to do, but the quality is better, the timeliness is better, the topics are more current because we can produce the videos in VO3 that are, look, the Super Bowl last year had AI-based video commercials in it. So if it's good enough for the Super Bowl, it's good enough for us. Now, there are still a very small minority of vocal people who say, get rid of the AI slop in my training. And unfortunately, we can't. That's the only way we can go to market and do it on a timely basis. And the vast majority of people, we sit at 90% positive thumbs up on our videos on average for people that rate us. So that vocal minority is just going to have to get over it because we can't not do it this way and serve the needs of the greatest number of people in the community out there. So AI is playing into everything we do, but it is not without warning or concern, right? There are still a lot of risks out there to the use of AI. One of our primary videos in our foundational set, we're about to release it, talks about using AI in your own business to putting sensitive or confidential information into the platform. That could be a real danger if you're releasing information to a public LLM like ChatGPT or Claude or Grok or what have you, because it can be consumed and then given back to other users of the system. Not always, but in many cases, it becomes part of their LLM. And so you need to be thinking about the engagement with your AI and putting anonymous data in there when you're saying, hey, I need to rewrite this proposal for my client. Take the client's name out and put ABC, company ABC. Generic data or anonymized data is not as risky. Don't put the formula to Coke if you're at Coca-Cola into AI because it'll say, yeah, let me share that with Pepsi and 7-Up and Crush, C Crush, or whatever the other companies out there are. So there's a lot of risks that go with it as well.
So you had a company now over 10 years, and what caused you to start that? I learned in business school, there's a precipitating event. Sometimes something happens, and then there's people that they just seem to, they're learning to read, and they're thinking about owning their own business. So Where did you fall in that category, in that range?
So let me take you back in time because I think the two great failures of my life, two in particular great failures in my life, led to wonderful opportunities. And I'd love to dive into that with you if you don't mind, Henry, for just a moment. So my father was a Rotarian. Growing up, we had 12 or more international exchange students come to our house, live with us for 1 to 3 months from Sweden and Denmark and France, all over the world. It was such a wonderful diaspora of the world in our home that it was just a wonderful thing. And when I got old enough, I said, I want to apply and go abroad for a year at 2 or 3 different homes, just like we hosted people at our house. I went into the meetings with Rotary and I did the interviews and I came up third. They were only sending two, so I did not make the cut, right? It was Thursday golf, Friday golf. I didn't play on the weekend, to quote the masters that are in the background today. But what I did get as the follow-up prize was I was enrolled for a weekend called RYLA, Rotary Youth Leadership Award. And on that weekend, I was exposed to all sorts of leadership activities, to games where we did the prisoner's dilemma, win-win scenarios versus win-lose, all these important parts of my development as a human being and as a leader. And since that time, I've made it a point of continuing those leadership experiences. I've done Up with People and Leadership Seacoast and Ascending Leaders in Technology. All these different things have happened over my professional career. And so fast forward to 10, 12 years ago, gosh, it might be 14 years ago, I was working at a bank, a large bank, and I was fired, terminated. And man, is that a blow to your psyche when you get terminated after putting everything you had into something for 18, 24 months. Without going into the backstory, I was fired and I did a little soul searching and I decided to found my company, CyberHoot. And if you combine the first story with the leadership programs to why I decided to found my company, I have one thing to say to the people listening to this, the entrepreneurs. I was freaked out about starting a company. I said, I don't know how to be a CEO or to incorporate a company or any of this stuff. But what I did have, all those leadership classes, all of those successes over time led me to believe I can figure it out. One problem at a time, I'll figure them out. And if I don't know the answer or can't figure it out, I know a lot of people in my career that I can go to and ask, hey, Henry, how do you do this part of starting a business? How do you be a CEO? And so I was, I guess, confident enough or foolish enough or both to say, I'm going to do this thing called CyberHoot. I'm going to start a company. I'm going to change an industry that I know is focused on the wrong things because of my psychology background, my leadership background, my educational background. And the rest is history. We've been successful. We've been cash flow positive for 6, 7 years now. And it's been an amazing journey that was predicated on my belief that I didn't have all the answers, but I could either figure it out given one problem at a time or find people who did and help me.
Terrific. Yeah. So how about when you were a kid?
That was when I was a kid,
I'm
was this
thinking
right?
because I'm thinking you were the leadership, but you weren't thinking specifically about starting your own business. There was that episode when you were fired that you did the soul searching. If you had asked yourself, 10-year-old self, if you were going to run your own business, I'm gathering you would have said no, that wasn't in your mindset
No,
or
no, I would say throughout my youth, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was trying to figure out, just like our youth today, my son and my other people that you talk to, they're like, what do I want to be when I grow up? It's really hard to decide. There's so many choices. And through that number of choices, you really have no way of deciding. You can only eliminate the things you know you don't want to do. And that's what I encourage young people to do is just keep trying different jobs until you find one that you've eliminated all the ones you don't. But when I was a kid, I said I would have loved to have been a professional hockey player, but I was never big enough. I'm only 5'7", and the NHL was full of these big 6'3" guys. So that was one of my early goals. And because I didn't know what I wanted to do, I knew I wanted to understand the human condition. I went to university for psychology because, look, in the absence of anything else, help me understand myself better, help me understand the experiences of others better. And that's what I got. I got a multidisciplinary approach from university that had me not just look at a math problem from a math perspective, but from a science perspective and from a humanities perspective. I was in an academia program at the University of Guelph in Canada, and I went into a class that was taught by an economist and a biologist on the economies of whales. And the question that the class started with, Henry, was, is it better to harvest all the whales out of the ocean and put that money in the bank to compound over time? Or is it better to keep all the whales in the ocean and allow for ecotourism and the beauty and the ecology and the importance that they play in the overall diaspora of nature? And they were arguing back and forth from different perspectives. Where we landed was somewhere in the middle. But the reality was, when you look at any problem, if you got binocular vision that's just tunnel vision, rather, you're not going to find the best answers to the problem. You need to come at it from multiple disciplines. And that's what I did with CyberHoot. We took psychology, education, cybersecurity, said these are the problems that we need to solve. People need to change behaviors, but people aren't paying attention. How do you get them to pay attention? Is you entertain them while you teach them. And you don't punish them for failure, you reward them for good behavior. So ultimately, it all came together. And if I have a legacy one day I want on my tombstone to say, he helped educate 1 billion people in a positive experiential way.
Wow, that's inspiring. How do you grow your business? Obviously, you're coming on a podcast here, and you are going on some other podcasts, but I know there's a lot more than that. So how are you getting more clients? I imagine there's referrals, traditional, you're not doing Super Bowl ads. What's the path for Craig and CyberHoot to reach those billion people?
We have a multi-dimensional approach. So we're looking at AI to help us with cold email outreach, putting our story in front of people that hopefully entertains them because they're sick and tired of the punishment approach. We also have, as you quite rightly called out, we have a body of managed service providers whose job it is to provide IT and cybersecurity to 10 to 20 or 30 different businesses, all their own, as the managed IT provider. So we've signed up 350 or more of those. And by the way, we do this globally across the world in 17 different languages. And our MSPs are all over the world, from Australia, New Zealand, throughout Europe, the Americas, and so on, down South America as well now. And so that's helping expand because those are our sales forces as well. They're having the conversations with their clients and they're bringing people in. We also have another part of our business called a virtual or fractional CISO, Chief Information Security Officer. And I've founded a peer group that has 25 members in it. We share best practices, ideas, and I have a handful of those peers are working for CyberHoot as subcontractors to bring cybersecurity best practices to businesses and build their cybersecurity programs. And inherent in that is awareness training and the phishing simulations to prevent the most common causes of breaches. And so we have this closed loop feedback loop on what we need to train people on because we're in the trenches with our clients seeing the day-to-day attacks. And we're saying, oh, we need to cover that. We need to cover this because these are emerging threats. Wrote a blog article today, I don't know if it's too early to segue to this, but on a really important change in the world of AI. Henry, I don't know if you go back in time, if you ever read Stephen Hawking's concerns around AI, or how Jeffrey Hinton, the godfather of AI, left Google because he couldn't morally or ethically continue the advancement of AI because he could see into the future and see what the problems would be and what we'd be up against as a global or world population. Warren Buffett in 2024, he said, AI, we let the genie out of the bottle with nuclear technology, and AI is just like it, and it's about to get out of the bottle as well. So there's been all these harbingers of warning about the use of AI. And I read these things and I listened to these things and I said, these are really smart people, but I just don't see it. I don't understand it until this week. This week, Anthropic had this vulnerability scanner called Mythos. And think of it like a Pandora's box. They open the lid, let it scan some stuff, and then they go, oh my God, and they shut the lid. We can't let this out. Every single product it looked at, including BSD, which people don't know what that is, Berkeley Systems operating system. It's the most secure operating system in the world. It's been scanned and audited and pen tested by every last person worth their salt for 25, 30 years. Mythos found a 0-day in it, broke right into it. Mythos was able to break into every last piece of software that it looked at. And so Anthropic said, oh my God, stop. We can't release this to the public because imagine this technology in the hands of our enemies. Banking would get in chaos when people break in. What would happen if Iran or North Korea got hold of it? And so they quickly backtracked, closed it, and said, okay, let's form a Glasswing coalition. You can read about it. There's a blog. We put a blog out today about this. Glasswing Coalition is the top 40 or 50 software vendors in the world who get access to Mythos to scan their code, to fix the bugs. And by the way, Mythos also offers suggestions. I found this bug. Here's how you fix it. Go fix it and verify it. That's all well and good, Henry, but there are 100 million pieces of software outside the barrier of this Glasswing coalition of the top 40 companies of the world. And so what happens when Mythos gets out to anyone else out there? There are 4 or 5 other vendors in the world of AI that are playing catch up, and they're anywhere from 6 to 12 to 18 months behind. But they will catch up and they will have these capabilities, not the least of which is DeepSeek in China. Are we comfortable in the US knowing that there's a technology that's on the doorstep of every malicious actor in the world 12 to 18 months away that can break in any software that's out there unless we somehow lock it down and use our own little advantage here with Mythos to fix it? But how are we going to do that? Nobody knows. This is a really critical moment. And there have been quite a few articles in the news as people start to get that canary in the coal mine feeling about this technology and AI. But the warnings from the past have finally come into clarity for me in this one space. And there's many other spaces where this AI development could also impact, with autonomous drones making independent decisions, right? Anthropic was labeled a supply chain risk by the Department of War because they refused to play ball and say, you can use our software anything you want. No, that would be unethical. It's not smart enough to do that yet. You shouldn't do it. It's in our article as well. So I don't want to be the harbinger of doom and gloom. I think there are things we can do today to help prepare for this, but there is a pretty big change happening in the world of AI as it pertains to pen testing and vulnerability scanning in this Mythos AI LLM that Anthropic's opened Pandora's box and then quickly shut it.
The speed that things are changing just keeps exponentially increasing.
Yeah.
You talk about some of the stories of, and I had read most of those stories that you were talking about, Stephen Hawkins, and Elon Musk is saying he's creating science fiction and reality in Texas, where he's going to build the biggest chip manufacturing plant in the world. I think primarily run by robots.
Yeah.
If it were anybody but Elon Musk, you might say, really? But it's hard to question him. So I like your think big and change the world in a billion people. And it seems like you're on your way, and you're always going to have to be on the cutting edge to provide this education. You're not going to be bored.
Yeah. Unfortunately, my father was a dentist, Henry, and he said, I don't like having to fill teeth when they have cavities, but it's a necessary evil. People come to us in pain. I fix it. They walk out, they're happy. I don't want the kind of business, nor did he, that he had. But unfortunately, cybersecurity and the breaches are only going to get worse before they get better. And I think but primarily for people who do the ostrich, put their head in the sand and say, it won't happen to me. I'm too small. I don't need to do these things. I don't need to pay attention to AI. I don't need to leverage AI in my business. Unfortunately, there's a lot of horse and buggy manufacturers that went out of business in 1910 because they didn't get on board with the automobile. And that was one industry. AI is every industry outside of the physical ones, but even the physical ones, like even farming, you're going to have AI driving the tractors and measuring the moisture content and the amount of spray to put down. AI will affect every single industry. You either get on board or you get left behind.
Well said. And that might, unless there's something I'd like to add, that may be a good place to round out with. If people wanted to get your help, CyberHoot's help, obviously you've got the website, which is pretty straightforward, cyberhoot.com, and go there and send an inquiry. What would you recommend?
Email sales@cyberhoot.com and we can get you a demo of our platform. If you're interested in the vCISO, you can still email sales. We have everything available there. We have some white papers. We have a blog that goes out once a week, a newsletter you can subscribe to, a cybersecurity library with 1,000 or more terms explained in plain English, where if you're saying, what the heck is cryptography, or what is, what was a big thing a few years ago that, I'm going to forget the term now. We have just about everything. Deepfakes is a new AI risk.
Yeah.
That's covered. We have a lot of different free resources there. Oh, and by the way, Henry, CyberHoot is free for individuals. You can sign up and get a lifetime subscription to our monthly trainings for free at cyberhoot.com/individuals. And if you sign up with Henry, with this podcast in mind, we'll give you a 20% discount for the first year of services.
Okay. So when you say with this podcast in mind, just reference the podcast that you were on?
Exactly. The name of your podcast, and we will happily give you 20% off for the first
Oh,
year.
fantastic. All right. I was glad to hear you say it's going to get better after it gets worse. And I think the nuclear is it's still out there. It's still a concern, right? We have the whole Iran thing at the moment, but, and I'm not making light of that, but it seems to be we've survived since the first nuclear bomb was dropped, and that's 80 years ago now, plus. So we'll make it through this. It's going to get worse, maybe, probably, but then it's going to get better. We'll persevere. And people like you and your company, there's no one quite like you, obviously, but hey, are helping make a difference, man, or making a big difference. Hey, thanks a lot for coming on. It was really a pleasure and interesting, and more power to you.
Thank you, Henry. I really enjoyed our talk. Thank you for the opportunity.
You bet.
Thank you for watching Henry Harrison's Entrepreneurs, Business and Finance podcast here on YouTube. Remember to subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can also search Henry Harrison Podcast on your favorite podcast platforms.